3 weeks after the Battle of Jupiter, the Valen Empire began to understand what terror truly meant. Human forces were everywhere and nowhere. They didn't mass their fleets for large battles. Instead, they scattered into small groups that struck without warning and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Commander Jinwoo had been promoted from sergeant after Ganymede. Now he led Shadow Squadron, a special operations unit that operated deep in enemy territory. His team consisted of 20 soldiers handpicked from special forces units around Earth. They were the best of the best, and their job was simple: make the Valen afraid to leave their home systems. Shadow Squadron's first target was Rigel 7, a major shipyard that produced a quarter of the Valen fleet's cruisers. It was heavily defended with orbital platforms, patrol ships, and thousands of security troops. It should have been impossible to attack. Jinwoo and his team used a captured Valen transport to approach the shipyard. They had killed the original crew 3 days earlier and took their ships' uniforms and access codes. The Valen security forces didn't suspect anything until it was too late. The team split up once they boarded the shipyard. 5 soldiers went to the main power plant. 5 went to the command center. The rest, including Jinwoo, headed for the construction docks where 6 new cruisers were being built. Private Yoonji was 19 years old and had joined the military straight out of school. She looked young and harmless, which was exactly why Jinwoo had picked her. While Valen workers stared at the lost human girl, she planted explosive charges on critical support structures. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, she was already at the next target. Corporal Taejin reached the command center by walking straight through the front door. He was carrying what looked like maintenance equipment. The Valen guards didn't even check him. He walked into the command center, drew his weapon, and killed every officer in the room before they could sound an alarm. Then he locked down the facility's defensive systems and waited for the fireworks. The shipyard exploded from within. The power plant detonated first, killing the lights and shields. Then the construction docks blew, sending 6 half-built cruisers tumbling into space. Finally, the command center's reactor overloaded, destroying the entire station core. Shadow Squadron evacuated on stolen Valen ships. The entire operation took 45 minutes. The Valen lost 6 ships, a major production facility, and 3,000 personnel. They never even saw most of their attackers. This was happening across Valen space. Small human teams were hitting targets the Valen thought were safe. Supply convoys disappeared. Mining operations went silent. Colonial administration buildings burned. The Empire was too large to defend everything, and the humans seemed to know exactly where to strike. Lieutenant Minji became famous throughout the Empire, though the Valen only knew her as the Ghost. She led a team that specialized in political targets. Her job was to make the Valen leadership afraid. Her most notorious operation happened on Valen 4, a colony world with 5 million inhabitants. The planetary governor, Velcourt, was a hardliner who supported the war and called for complete genocide of humanity. He lived in a fortress protected by an army of guards. Minji and her 3-person team infiltrated the fortress by hiding in a food delivery. They waited in the kitchen for 2 hours, then moved when the guards changed shifts. It took them 8 minutes to reach the governor's personal quarters. He was eating dinner with his family. Minji killed the guards first, then the governor. She left his family alive but showed them recordings of what Valen forces had tried to do at Ganymede. Then she broadcast a message to the entire planet from the governor's own communication system. "This is Lieutenant Minji of Earth Special Forces. Your governor called for our extinction. He died for that. We don't want to kill civilians. We don't want to destroy your worlds. But we will if you keep supporting this war. Tell your leaders to surrender or we will keep coming. We are very patient and we are very good at killing." She and her team walked out of the fortress in stolen uniforms. By the time Valen security realized what happened, they were already off-world. The psychological impact was devastating. If humans could kill a planetary governor in his own fortress, no Valen leader was safe. The Empire's High Council increased security dramatically, but it didn't help. The humans adapted to every defense. They used disguises, bribery, computer hacking, and sometimes just overwhelming violence to reach their targets. Captain Sora commanded a hunter-killer group in deep space. Her 4 ships were fast and heavily armed. They hunted Valen supply convoys and isolated patrol ships. Her tactics were brutal and effective. She would let her targets detect her approach, making them think they could escape or call for help. Then she would jam their communications and run them down. Her ships were faster than anything the Valen had, Once she caught them, her crews showed no mercy. "Why do you do this?" a captured Valen captain asked her once. "We are just supply ships. We carry food and equipment, not weapons." Sora looked at him coldly. "You supply the ships that tried to destroy Earth. That makes you part of the war machine. We don't make distinctions." She ordered his ship destroyed with all hands after taking the supplies. Word spread quickly through Valen space. No ship was safe. No crew was protected. The humans didn't care about military targets versus civilian ones. If you supported the war effort, you were a target. Major Doyen, who had led the first delegation to Kepler 442, now commanded a full regiment of special forces. His job was coordination. He made sure every human team in Valen space had the intelligence and support they needed. He also made sure the Valen never knew where the next attack would come. From his command ship hidden in an uncharted system, Doyen reviewed reports and planned operations. His analysts studied Valen communications, looking for weaknesses and opportunities. His logistics officers made sure weapons and supplies reached teams operating hundreds of light years from Earth. "Sir, we're getting reports that Valen military recruitment has dropped by 60%, one analyst told him. "Their civilians don't want to fight anymore." Doyen nodded. This was the goal. Break their will to fight, make every Valen question whether the war was worth the cost. Good. Increase operations against civilian infrastructure. Power plants, water treatment, communication networks. Nothing that kills civilians directly, but everything that makes their lives harder. Let them know their government cannot protect them. It was a brutal strategy, but it worked. Valen world started demanding peace negotiations. 23 of the Empire's 47 member systems threatened to secede if the war continued. The economy collapsed as trade routes became too dangerous to use. Military morale plummeted as soldiers realized they might die anywhere, anytime, without ever seeing their enemy. Counselor Dresheva watched her predictions come true. She had warned them this would happen. The Valen were trying to fight a conventional war against an enemy who didn't believe in conventions. Every rule of warfare the Empire followed, the humans broke. Every expectation they had, the humans violated. She submitted another report to the High Council, knowing they wouldn't listen. "We are being hunted," she wrote. "The humans have turned our territory into their hunting ground. Our soldiers are prey. Our civilians are afraid. Our leaders are being assassinated. We cannot win because we are fighting the wrong war. They are not trying to conquer us. They are trying to break us, and it is working." The High Council called an emergency session. They needed to decide, surrender or escalate. Some counselors wanted to use forbidden weapons, biological agents that could wipe out entire planets. Others wanted to negotiate before things got worse. They argued for hours while across their empire, human teams continued their work. Shadow Squadron hit another shipyard. Lieutenant Minji killed another governor. Captain Sora destroyed another convoy. The systematic destruction of the Valen Empire continued one target at a time. Admiral Taiho received regular reports from all these operations. He was proud of his people, but also worried. This kind of warfare was effective but brutal. It required soldiers to do things that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. But he couldn't stop now. The Valen had threatened Earth's existence. They had to learn that was a mistake they would never make again. He sent a message to Major Doyen. "Continue operations. No reduction in tempo. I want the Valen to wake up every day afraid and go to sleep every night knowing they could die. I want their leaders to understand that the only way to safety is through surrender. Break them." Doyen read the message and nodded. He turned to his planning staff. "You heard the Admiral. Find me more targets." The war had entered its most terrifying phase for the Valen. They weren't fighting armies anymore. They were being hunted by ghosts who struck without warning and disappeared without trace. Every Valen civilian wondered if their power would fail, if their governor would be assassinated, if their supply ships would arrive. Every Valen soldier wondered if they would survive another day, and through it all the humans kept coming. Patient, persistent, and absolutely ruthless. They had learned from thousands of years of warfare that you don't win by being nice. You win by making your enemy wish they had never started the fight. The Valen Empire was beginning to wish exactly that. History will remember this as the moment the Valen Empire died. The Grand Armada assembled at the edge of Valen space. 2,000 warships, the largest military force in the Empire's history. Every ship was crewed by veterans. Every weapon was tested and ready. This fleet had enough firepower to sterilize entire planets. The Valen High Council gave simple orders: destroy humanity completely. Supreme Commander Zexathar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. He was 300 years old, the most experienced military leader in the Empire. He had never lost a battle. He looked at the tactical display showing Earth's solar system and felt confident. The humans had maybe 400 ships. They had no chance. All ships report ready, his second officer announced. Begin the jump, Zexathar ordered. We will end this war before humanity can spread beyond their home system. The Grand Armada entered faster than light travel. When they emerged in the Sol system, they expected to find Earth's fleet waiting to defend their home. Instead, they found empty space. Long-range scans detected human ships, but they were retreating toward the inner planets. The Valen assumed it was cowardice. They were wrong. Admiral Tejo commanded Earth's Terran defense fleet from his flagship, the Defiant. He was 60 years old with silver hair and a face marked by scars from 3 different wars. He had fought in conflicts from Korea to the Middle East before joining the new Space Force. He knew exactly what he was doing. Valen fleet is pursuing, his tactical officer reported. They're taking the bait. Good, Tejo said calmly. Signal the belt. Execute on my mark. The Valen fleet moved confidently through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It was a calculated risk, but their shields could handle any collisions. Commander Zexathar watched his screens and smiled. The humans were running scared, probably hoping to make a last stand near Earth. He would not give them that chance. Sir, detecting massive energy spikes in the belt, a Valen sensor officer said suddenly. What kind of spikes? Zexathar demanded. All kinds. Nuclear, kinetic, chemical, and, sir, the asteroids themselves are moving. The belt exploded into chaos. Thousands of weapons that had been hidden for months activated simultaneously. Nuclear mines planted on asteroids detonated in patterns designed for maximum damage. Kinetic kill vehicles that had been drifting like rocks suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds, slamming into Valen ships with the force of small suns. Entire asteroids had been hollowed out, filled with explosives and set on collision courses with the fleet. The Valen tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Ships that survived the initial wave found themselves trapped in a maze of debris and death. Captain Heejin commanded the carrier Indomitable. She watched the Valen fleet scatter and knew this was the moment. All fighters, launch now. Hit them while they're confused. 300 human fighters poured out of the carriers. They were small and fast, covered in armor made from materials the Valen had never seen. Each one carried enough firepower to cripple a cruiser, and their pilots had trained for this exact scenario. Lieutenant Mina flew her fighter straight into the middle of a Valen formation. Missiles away, then energy weapons blazing, then out before they could respond. She had practiced this maneuver 10,000 times in simulation, and 50 times in real combat exercises. It was automatic. The Valen tried to adapt, but human tactics made no sense to them. The humans didn't stay in formation. They didn't follow predictable patterns. Each pilot seemed to operate independently while somehow working together perfectly. It was chaos that functioned like precision. Commander Zexathar watched his fleet take massive casualties. Pull back! Reform at the outer edge of the belt. But Admiral Tejo had predicted this too. As the Valen fleet tried to retreat, Earth's main battle group appeared from behind Jupiter. They had been hiding in the gas giant's massive shadow, waiting for exactly this moment. All ships, full attack, Tejo ordered. Show them what human warfare looks like. The human fleet was outnumbered 2-1, but they had been designed for this kind of fight. Every ship was built around one concept: kill the enemy or die trying. They had no luxury sections, no decorative hulls, no wasted space. Just weapons, armor, engines, and the people who ran them. Captain Heejin's carrier group moved first. Her ships didn't try to survive. They drove straight into the Valen formation, launching fighters and firing every weapon they had. The Valen fleet's defensive fire destroyed 2 human destroyers immediately, but those destroyers had already launched their missiles, and their debris created additional cover for the ships behind them. Commander Guri led a wolf pack of 6 human frigates. Her orders were simple: get inside the enemy fleet and cause maximum chaos. They made it past the Valen defensive line by using a tactic no Valen commander would ever approve. They accelerated to ramming speed, then at the last second veered away and dumped their entire missile payload at point-blank range. 3 of Guri's ships didn't make it. The other three destroyed a dozen Valen cruisers before jumping away to rearm. It was a trade the humans were happy to make. The battle raged for 18 hours. The space around Jupiter became a graveyard of broken ships and floating debris. The Valen kept trying to use proper military tactics, coordinated formations, strategic positioning. The humans kept using methods that looked like suicide runs but somehow worked. Ensign Dabin, manning weapons on the destroyer Relentless, fired until his console overheated. When it died, he grabbed a repair kit and fixed it while the ship shook from enemy impacts. His captain was dead. His executive officer was dead. He was the ranking officer on the bridge now, and he was 19 years old. "Keep firing," he shouted to what was left of his crew. "We hold until the Indomitable can get clear." The Relentless took a direct hit from a Valen capital ship. The explosion tore the destroyer in half, but Dabin had kept firing until the last second, and his final missiles crippled the Valen ship's engines. Captain Heejan's carrier escaped because of his sacrifice. This happened again and again throughout the battle. Human ships that should have retreated kept fighting. Crews that should have abandoned ship stayed at their posts. Pilots who could have ejected flew their damaged fighters into Valen ships instead. Commander Zexthar finally understood what Counselor Dresheva had tried to tell them. These humans weren't fighting to survive. They were fighting to win, and they didn't care what it cost. Every time he destroyed a human ship, the others fought harder. Every time he thought they would break, they adapted and came back stronger. "Sir, we've lost 900 ships, his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. Human losses are estimated at 200 ships, but they're still fighting at full effectiveness. Zexthar looked at his displays in disbelief. He had started with a 3-to-1 advantage. Now the numbers were almost even, and the humans showed no sign of stopping. Admiral Taiho watched from the Defiance bridge. His ship had taken damage, but it was still functional. He had lost friends today, good officers and crew who would never see Earth again, but they had done their job. Valen fleet is breaking formation, his tactical officer reported. They're trying to retreat. Taiho allowed himself a small smile. Let them go. We've made our point. The Grand Armada jumped away from Sol system. They had started with 2,000 ships. They left with barely 1,000. The humans had started with 400. They still had 200 operational vessels. The Valen High Council received Commander Zexthar's report in silence. The greatest military leader in their history had been beaten by a species that had been in space for less than a decade. The casualty report was devastating. Over 200,000 Valen soldiers and crew dead. The humans had lost 50,000, and they treated it like an acceptable price. They were supposed to be primitives, one counselor whispered. They are primitives, another replied. That's what makes them so dangerous. They fight like animals wearing uniforms. They don't care about honor or rules or their own lives. They just care about killing us. Admiral Taiho sent his own report to Earth Command. It was brief and to the point. Battle of Jupiter is a victory. Enemy retreated with heavy losses. Our losses are significant but acceptable. The Valen Empire now knows they cannot win a defensive war against us. Recommend we take the fight to them immediately. If we give them time to adapt, this war becomes much harder. We need to press our advantage while they're still afraid. Earth Command approved his recommendation. Within a week, human strike forces began appearing in Valen space. The Empire had wanted to destroy humanity. Instead, they had created something far worse. A motivated human military with a target and no intention of stopping until that target was eliminated. The Valen thought they were fighting a war of conquest. They were wrong. They were fighting a war of survival, and they were losing. The Valen High Council chamber was silent except for the sound of breathing. 14 counselors sat in a circle, staring at the holographic display floating in the center. It showed Earth spinning slowly, a blue and green marble covered in clouds. It looked peaceful. Beautiful even, Counselor Dresheva stood up. She was the Empire's chief xenopsychologist, the one who studied alien species to understand how they thought and behaved. She had been studying humans for the past 3 weeks, ever since Ganymede. What she found terrified her. My colleagues, she began, her voice steady but her hands shaking slightly. I have completed my analysis of human history and psychology. I must warn you, what I am about to present will change how we see this conflict. The display changed from Earth to a timeline. It stretched back thousands of years, and every inch of it was marked with red symbols. War, conflict, death. This is human history, Dresheva continued. What you see here is not unusual for them. This is normal. Humans have been fighting wars for their entire existence as a species. They have never known true peace, not for a single generation. One of the counselors, an old male named Treshikor, spoke up. Many species have wars. We ourselves had conflicts before we united. Not like this, Dreshava replied. She pressed a button and numbers appeared. In the last 100 years alone, humans have killed over 100 million of their own species in wars. In a single war they call World War II, they killed 60 million people in 6 years. They didn't stop because they grew tired of killing. They stopped because one side completely destroyed the other. The room went quiet. The Valen had been at peace for 400 years. In all their wars before unification, they had lost maybe 10 million people over 1,000 years. The humans had lost more than that in a single conflict. But that's not what frightens me most, Dreshava said. She brought up images of Earth's weapons. Bombs, missiles, guns, knives, and things the Valen didn't have words for. Humans have weaponized everything. They have bombs that can destroy entire cities. They have diseases they created just to kill enemy soldiers. They have weapons that burn people alive. Weapons that poison the ground so nothing can grow. Weapons that attack the mind instead of the body. She paused, making sure everyone was paying attention. They split the atom itself and turned it into a weapon. They dropped 2 of these bombs on their own planet on cities full of people to end a war. Over 200,000 people died instantly. And it worked. The war ended. Another counselor, Veshra, shook her head. This is madness. Why would any species do this to themselves? Because they win, Dreshava answered simply. Every human culture has learned the same lesson over thousands of years. The side that is willing to go further, to sacrifice more, to use any method necessary, that side usually wins. They have internalized this. It is part of how they think. She brought up footage from Ganymede. The counselors had seen it before, but Dreshava made them watch it again. Bach, the hydroponics engineer, walking into Junction 12 with an explosive strapped to her chest. Sergeant Jinwoo appearing behind Valen soldiers and killing them with efficiency that looked almost bored. Commander Sunho calmly ordering civilians to use chemical weapons against enemy troops. These are not soldiers, Dreshava said. That woman was a plant grower. She had children. She blew herself up without hesitation, because it meant stopping enemy soldiers from advancing. This is normal behavior for humans when their home is threatened. She changed the image to show the arena fight. Nari laughing while she fought. Kwang breaking bones like it was easy. Jisoo small and young killing warriors twice her size. Now observe their soldiers, Dreshava continued. Notice how they move. They are not just trained. They are conditioned. From childhood, humans play games that simulate war. They watch entertainment that shows violence. They study history that teaches them every war their species ever fought. By the time a human joins their military, they have already spent thousands of hours thinking about combat. She pulled up psychological profiles, and here is what makes them truly dangerous. Humans are persistence predators. On their planet, they were not the strongest or the fastest, but they could run longer than anything else. They would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would kill it. This is how they fight wars, she added. They never stop. They never quit. You can hurt them, kill many of them, make them suffer, but they will keep coming. And they have evolved bodies that support this. They can suppress pain. They can function with injuries that would kill most species. There are documented cases of humans continuing to fight after losing limbs. The council chamber was completely silent now. Everyone was staring at the display, at the images of smiling humans covered in blood, of civilians fighting like warriors, of soldiers who looked like they enjoyed killing. Dreshava brought up more footage, this time from Earth's own recordings. Soldiers training in environments designed to break them mentally, exercises where they had to function without sleep for days, scenarios where they practiced fighting in cities, in tunnels, in space, in every possible situation. They do not train for war, Dreshava said. They live in a state of constant preparation for war. Every human soldier has studied failures from past conflicts. They know what works and what doesn't, because they have thousands of years of data. We have been peaceful for 4 centuries. Our soldiers practice in simulations. Theirs practice by studying real battles where millions died. She showed them footage of human soldiers in training, fighting each other with brutal efficiency. Then she showed them the same soldiers laughing and joking minutes later, completely relaxed. They can switch between peaceful and violent instantly. It is not an act. Both states are natural to them. Counselor Treshikor stood up, his face showing confusion and fear. Are you saying they are all insane? How can a species function like this? They are not insane, Dreshova replied. That is what makes them so dangerous. They are completely rational. They know exactly what they are doing. They have built a civilization while constantly fighting themselves. They have art, music, philosophy, science all developed during times of war. They do not see violence and culture as opposites. They see them as two parts of the same nature. She brought up one final image. It showed Earth from space, but this time with overlays showing military installations, weapon stockpiles, training facilities. The entire planet was covered in them. They have turned their homeworld into a fortress. Every continent has weapons that could destroy fleets. Every population center has defenses. Every citizen receives basic combat training in school. They are not a peaceful species that can fight. They are a warrior species that has learned to also build civilizations. And now, Dreshova said, her voice dropping, we have given them a reason to unite. For the first time in their history, all humans are focused on a single enemy. Us. Every internal conflict they have, every disagreement, every difference has been set aside. They have a common threat, and that has made them more dangerous than they have ever been. She turned off the display and faced the council. I need you to understand something. We cannot win a conventional war against humanity. Our soldiers are trained to fight other civilized species who follow rules, who value survival, who can be deterred by fear of losses. Humans do not follow rules. They do not care about losses if those losses lead to victory, and they cannot be deterred because they genuinely believe that death in defense of their species is honorable. What do you recommend? Counselor Vishera asked quietly. Immediate surrender, Dreshva said without hesitation. We apologize, we pay whatever reparations they demand, and we never threaten them again. That is unacceptable, another counselor shouted. We are the Valen Empire. We have ruled this region of space for 400 years. We cannot bow to a species that just discovered faster than light travel. Dreshova looked at him sadly. Then we will be destroyed. Because I have watched their training footage, their entertainment, their historical records. I have studied how they think and what they value. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, if we continue this war, they will not stop until every Valen is dead or enslaved. They do not do peace through negotiation with enemies who attacked them first. They do peace through total victory. The council voted. 12 counselors voted to continue the war, to mobilize the full might of the empire and crush humanity before they could grow stronger. Only 2 voted for peace. Dreshova watched the vote and felt something she had never felt before. Despair, not for humanity. They would be fine. They were built for this. She felt despair for her own people, because they had no idea what was coming. As the council discussed battle plans and fleet movements, Dreshova quietly left the chamber. She went to her office and began writing a personal record, something for whoever might survive what was about to happen. Today the Valen Empire sealed its fate, she wrote. We chose pride over wisdom, tradition over reality. We are going to war with a species that has been fighting since before they could write. We are sending soldiers who train in simulations to fight soldiers who train in wars. We are bringing conventional tactics to face an enemy who will use any method, any weapon, any sacrifice necessary to win. The Valen High Council met in emergency session. The images from Kepler 442 had spread throughout the Empire. Some counselors called for caution. Others called for immediate action. Pride 1. Fleet Admiral Kreshtar received his orders 3 days after the arena incident. He was to take the 7th Fleet, 300 warships, and occupy humanity's outer colonies. It would be a show of force. The humans would see Valen power and understand that their little demonstration meant nothing against real military might. Kreshtar was confident. He had commanded fleets for 30 years. He had pacified a dozen systems. A few human mining outposts would surrender without a shot fired. It was always the same with primitive species. They talked tough until they saw real power. The 7th Fleet entered the Sol system and moved toward Jupiter. Long-range scans detected a small station orbiting Ganymede, one of Jupiter's moons. Population, 4,000 civilians, 50 security personnel. It was perfect. Take the station, show the humans their weakness, and Earth would negotiate. Ganymede Station was a collection of connected modules built into the moon's ice. It had been mining water and minerals for 20 years. The people there were workers, families, regular people just trying to make a living. Commander Sunho ran the station. He was 45 years old with gray in his hair and old scars on his hands from years of mining work. He had served in Earth's military when he was younger, but that was a long time ago. Now he just wanted to keep his people safe and the station running. When the Valen fleet appeared in orbit, Sunho knew exactly what was happening. He gathered everyone in the main hall. 4,000 faces looked at him scared, waiting for him to tell them everything would be okay. "They're going to demand we surrender," Sunho told them. His voice was calm, matter-of-fact. "They think we're helpless. They think we'll give up because we're just miners and families. They're wrong." Lieutenant Hana stood beside him. She was young, only 27, and she had been station security chief for 2 years. "What do we do?" she asked. Sunho smiled. It was the same kind of smile Nari had worn in the arena. "We show them what humans do when someone threatens their home." Admiral Kreshitar's message came an hour later. His voice boomed through the station speakers. "People of Ganymede Station, this is Admiral Kreshitar of the Valen Empire. You are now under our authority. Surrender immediately and no one will be harmed. Resist and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide." Sunho picked up the communication device. Every Valen ship in orbit heard his response. "Come and take it." Kreshitar couldn't believe what he heard. These were civilians, miners, families. They had no chance against his fleet. He decided to be generous. He would only send 2,000 shock troopers. It would be overwhelming but not destructive. The humans would see reason. The troop transports launched from the Valen ships. Inside each one, soldiers prepared their weapons and checked their armor. They joked about how easy this would be. Taking a mining station from scared civilians was barely even training. The first transport docked with the station. 50 Valen troopers filed into the airlock, ready to secure the entry point. The inner door opened. They moved forward into a corridor lit by emergency lights. That's when the corridor exploded. The blast killed 30 troopers instantly. The survivors stumbled back, confused and injured. Then the shooting started. Hidden panels in the walls opened and mining lasers, repurposed as weapons, cut through Valen armor. The survivors tried to retreat, but the airlock was sealed. They were trapped. It took 3 minutes for all 50 troopers to die. Not one of them saw who was shooting. This happened at every docking point. Transport after transport connected to the station and troops poured in. None of them came back. The station was a maze of corridors and rooms, and every single one was a trap. Commander Sunho watched from his command bunker deep in the ice. Lieutenant Hana sat beside him, coordinating the defense. They had spent the last week preparing. Every civilian on the station knew their role. The miners knew how to set explosives. The engineers knew how to turn regular equipment into weapons. The families knew how to hide and when to fight. Section C7 is reporting 40 Valen down, Hana said, reading the reports coming in. They used the decompression trap. Good, Sunho replied. He was recording everything, sending it back to the Valen fleet. He wanted them to see. He wanted them to know what it cost to threaten humans. A woman named Bach appeared on one of the screens. She was a 50-year-old hydroponics engineer with 3 children. She was also carrying a homemade explosive device and wearing a mining suit. Commander, they're trying to push through Junction 12. There's about 60 of them. Can you hold? Sunho asked. Bach smiled. I can do better than that. She cut the transmission. 2 minutes later, Junction 12 reported 0 enemy contacts. Bach didn't survive. Neither did any of the Valen soldiers. Admiral Kreshitar watched the feeds from his command ship in growing horror. His troopers were being slaughtered. These weren't soldiers defending the station. These were ordinary people fighting like demons. They used suicide attacks, ambush tactics, chemical weapons, traps that showed a cruel creativity he had never seen before. One group of Valen soldiers got trapped in a storage bay. The humans sealed the doors and started pumping in mining chemicals. The soldiers screamed for 30 minutes before they died. Kreshitar heard every second of it. Another squad made it to the residential section. They thought they would find scared families hiding in their rooms. Instead, they found families working together to defend their homes. Children threw homemade grenades. Parents used tools as weapons. An old man in his 70s killed 3 Valen soldiers with a mining drill before they finally stopped him. Sergeant Jinwoo led a group of actual security personnel through the station's ventilation system. They would pop up behind Valen positions, kill everyone in seconds, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. The Valen called them ghosts. Jinwu called it basic guerrilla warfare. 6 hours into the assault, Admiral Kreshtar had lost 1,200 soldiers. He held a meeting with his senior officers. "We need to pull back," one of them said. "This station isn't worth these losses." "We cannot retreat," Kreshtar insisted. "The Empire is watching. If we fail here, we show weakness. If we continue here, we lose the entire ground force," another officer replied. "These humans fight like they have nothing to lose. They're killing themselves just to take a few of our soldiers with them. We can't win against an enemy like that." Another transport docked. Another 50 soldiers entered the station. Lieutenant Hana watched them on the security feeds and activated Trap Sequence 17. The corridor they were walking through suddenly vented to space. The soldiers were sucked out into the vacuum, their bodies tumbling away from the station in a cloud of frozen air. Commander Sunho broadcast another message to the fleet. "You've lost almost 2,000 soldiers trying to take one mining station. Earth has hundreds of stations, thousands of ships, billions of people, and every single one of them will fight exactly like we're fighting. So ask yourself, how many of your soldiers are you willing to lose?" Kreshtar stared at the screen showing Sunho's scarred face. The human looked tired but not defeated. Not even close. He looked like he could keep fighting forever. "Pull back," Kreshtar finally ordered. "All troops return to ships. We're leaving." The 7th Fleet retreated from Ganymede Station 12 hours after the assault began. They had lost 60% of their ground forces and gained nothing. The station was still in human hands. Every civilian was still alive and armed. As the Valen ships jumped back to their territory, Commander Sunho stood in the main hall of the station. The people around him were exhausted, many wounded, but they were alive. And they had won. "Send a message to Earth," Sunho told Hana. "Tell them we held. Tell them the Valen learned what happens when they threaten human families." Hana smiled and started typing the report, but she added one more line at the end. "We are ready if they come back." Admiral Kreshtar sent his report to the High Council that night. It was longer than Thexron's warning, but had the same conclusion. "These humans are not rational beings. They do not value survival. They only value victory. We cannot fight them with conventional tactics. They will sacrifice everything to win. I recommend immediate peace negotiations." The council read the report. They saw the casualty numbers. They watched the footage of civilians fighting like professional soldiers. And they made their decision. Humanity must be destroyed completely, or the Empire itself was in danger. War was no longer a possibility. It was inevitable. The silver ships appeared above Earth on a Tuesday morning. They were massive, each one the size of a small city, and they blocked out the sun over major capitals around the world. The Valen Empire had arrived, and they came with expectations. Ambassador Velthor stepped out of his transport ship in Geneva, surrounded by an honor guard of warriors in gleaming blue armor. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, with smooth gray skin and 4 arms. His species had been exploring space for thousands of years. They had seen hundreds of primitive worlds. Earth would be no different. The humans had prepared a landing zone at the old United Nations building. Velthor expected to see frightened politicians, maybe some military officers trying to look brave. Instead, he found one man waiting for him. Colonel Minho stood alone on the platform. He wore a simple black uniform with no decorations except a small earth patch on his shoulder. He was average height for a human, maybe 5'10", with dark hair cut short and dark eyes that never blinked. He didn't salute. He didn't bow. He just waited. Velthor activated his translator and spoke in what he thought was a kind voice. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Valen Empire. We have come to offer you a place in the galactic community. You will submit to our authority, pay tribute, and in return we will protect you from the dangers of space." Minho didn't react for a moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "No," he said simply. Velthor's honor guard shifted uncomfortably. In 400 years of expansion, no primitive species had ever said no to the Empire's first offer. "Perhaps you don't understand," Velthor continued. "This is not a negotiation. This is how things work. You are new to space. We are not. You will join us or we will make you join us." Minho pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Around the world, every Valen ship suddenly found itself targeted by thousands of weapons. Missiles, lasers, railguns, things the Valen didn't even recognize. Earth had been watching the stars for a long time. They had prepared. Now you understand, Minho said, his voice calm and cold. We don't want to join your empire, but we do want to meet your military. Send your best soldiers to Kepler 4042, we'll send ours. Let's see who's really in charge. Velthor felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. This human didn't talk like a primitive. He talked like a predator, but the Empire couldn't back down. They agreed to the meeting. 3 weeks later, General Thexron waited at the Valen military outpost near Kepler 442. He commanded the Empire's elite forces. He had crushed 17 rebellions without losing a single battle. He expected Earth to send diplomats, maybe some scientists. He would show them Valen superiority and they would understand their place. The human ship arrived on schedule. It was small and ugly, covered in armor plating and weapon ports. It looked like it was built for one purpose: war. The door opened and soldiers marched out in perfect formation. Major Doyen led them. He was shorter than most of his soldiers, but he moved like a machine. Behind him came 200 troops in black armor. They wore helmets that hid their faces, no insignia, no decorations, just weapons. Lots of weapons. Captain Nari walked beside Doyen. She was the only one not wearing a helmet. Her face was young, maybe 25, with a scar running down her left cheek. She was smiling. It made the Valen guards nervous. Welcome, General Thexron said, trying to sound confident. We appreciate your journey. Perhaps we can discuss terms. We want to fight, Doyen interrupted. His voice was flat, emotionless. Your best against ours, hand to hand. No weapons except what we carry on our bodies. We need to know if you're worth talking to. Thexron laughed. These humans were insane, but if they wanted to be humiliated, he would oblige. Very well. We will use the arena. I will send my Crimson Guard. They have never been defeated. How many? Nari asked, still smiling. 20 of my finest warriors. We'll send 12, Doyen said. The Valen couldn't believe it. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Thexron decided it was the latter. The arena was a large circular room with walls of transparent steel. Thousands of Valen soldiers gathered to watch. They expected entertainment. They expected to see human arrogance crushed in minutes. The Crimson Guard entered first. They were massive, each one over 7 feet tall, wearing red armor that had been earned through 100 battles. They carried energy staffs that could break bones with a single hit. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of deadly precision. Then the humans entered. 12 soldiers, no helmets now, just hard faces and cold eyes. They carried knives, short clubs, and nothing else. They didn't form a line. They just spread out, loose and relaxed. Some of them were stretching. One was yawning. Nari was among them. So was a big man they called Sergeant Kwang. He was 6'4" and built like a tank. Next to him stood a small woman named Private Jisoo who looked like she weighed maybe 110 pounds. The signal sounded. The fight began. The Valen expected the humans to charge or defend. They did neither. They scattered like they had practiced this 1,000 times. The Crimson Guard tried to maintain formation, but the humans were too fast, too unpredictable. Kwang grabbed a Valen warrior by the arm and broke it with a simple twist. The Valen screamed. Kwang punched him in the throat and moved to the next target. Jisoo jumped on a warrior's back, wrapped her legs around his neck and twisted. The sound of breaking vertebrae echoed in the arena. Nari fought 3 guards at once. She moved like water, flowing around their strikes, her knife finding gaps in their armor. She was laughing the whole time, a wild, terrifying sound that made the watching Valen go silent. 4 minutes. That's how long it took. The Crimson Guard, the pride of the Valen military, lay broken on the floor. Some were dead. Most wished they were. The 12 humans stood among them, barely breathing hard. Kwang was cleaning blood off his knuckles. Jisoo was retying her hair. Nari was still smiling. The arena was completely silent. Thousands of Valen soldiers stared in shock and horror. These weren't soldiers. Soldiers fought with honor, with discipline, with rules. These humans fought like devils wearing uniforms. General Thexron felt his world crumbling. He had seen war. He had seen violence. But he had never seen anything like this. These humans enjoyed it. They were built for it. Doyen walked up to the observation window where Thexron stood. Now we can talk, he said calmly. But first you should know something. These 12 soldiers, they're not special forces. They're not elite warriors. They're regular infantry. Earth has billions of them, and they're all like this." He paused, then added, "We call them scouts." Thexron sent an emergency message back to the Empire that night. It was short. "We have made a terrible mistake. These humans are not like other species. They are not civilized. They are weapons that learned to talk. We must reconsider everything." But the Empire didn't listen. They decided to teach humanity a lesson instead. It was the worst decision they ever made.